поредното издание на нашата
Good morning,
конференция.
everyone. We are almost ready to launch our conference on sustainable heating and also on the renovation wave system.
The sustainable domestic heating solutions. And this year, for the first time, also focused on the topic of renovation because of the Renovation Wave initiative of the EU. A few instructions, няколко бързи инструкции за това как ще работим днес. There would be a couple of people that will be part of this conference over Zoom. Няколко човека ще имаме, които ще бъдат част от тази конференция през канала в Zoom. Всички останали имат възможност да следят директно излъчване.
Everybody else will be able to follow our channel via our YouTube channel. You will be able to see the link on our Facebook page as well.
Part of this conference through the Zoom channel, and everyone else can be watching the entire conference streamed through YouTube. In a few seconds also there will be a link for to follow the channel through our Facebook channels. Тази конференция ще бъде изцяло записана и след това ще бъде достъпна за всички, които не са имали възможност да се присъединят или които искат отново да проследят част от детайлите, които сме обсъждали. Така че не се притеснявайте, линкове за цялото събитие за всички тези 5 дни ще бъдат качени на канала ни в YouTube. This conference will be fully on record, so do not worry if you cannot join all the 5 days of the conference. It will be recorded and then uploaded on public domain, most likely on our YouTube channel, where you can get back to details or recommend to other people to watch the presentations that have been featured. Аз съм Геннадий Кондарев и съм един от тримата организатори днес на тази конференция.
My name is Gennady Kondarev. I'm one of the 3 organizers of this conference together with Radostina Slavko from Zazemята and also our colleague Svetoslav Stoykov, who also represents Zazemята. This will be an event to take place in English. That's why for everyone who's following our channel in Bulgarian, I would like to remind you that there will be interpretation throughout the whole time of the conference. You will have the chance. Apologies, give me a second because I'm trying to tackle with the management of my presentation slides. So once again, you will be able to follow the translation, the interpretation in Bulgarian by clicking on the interpretation button and choose Bulgarian. I suppose that on YouTube there will be 2 channels operating simultaneously. As I said, the links will be accessible in a few minutes. We are also going to share the links in the chat channel of our event so that you can share that with your friends and colleagues.
Now, switching to fully English presenting during this conference, there will be still a simultaneous translation that will go through a Bulgarian channel. So we just provided instructions to the Bulgarian audience how they can access the channels. Both channels for the English and the Bulgarian interpretation and the direct streaming will be featured in the chat option or on the Facebook webpage of Zazemята. Please follow us. If you have any questions and if you have any difficulties, let us know through the chat option or through any of our channels. And I think that we are ready to take off. Everything is fine technically. All channels are working. So again, warm welcome to everyone to this annual conference that we try to dedicate to the topic of sustainable domestic heating. This has been the big elephant in the room of the energy consumption and the topic of decarbonization and solving many of the problems, including air quality and quality of life in the past few years. But this topic is definitely already taking off very successfully around the region of Central and Eastern Europe and Southeast Europe. What is important to know about this event? We still had a bit of an argument whether it's the third or the fourth edition, but we do count that in 2018, it started as a little grain when we were invited to present the initiatives related to heating during a conference of the Bulgarian Municipal Environmental Experts Conference. And since then, it has been growing and involving more and more actors, not only from Bulgaria, but from the region. This conference is focused mostly on solutions that can be basically scaled up at a mass scale. They focus on people that are in the situation of energy poverty and households that are in the situation of energy poverty, or middle-class households that basically could count on solutions that are already at a mass use at market level. We do not focus for the moment on boutique types of solutions or anything that is in a very initial phase of the development and still not market mature, although for promising technologies, we do plan to have some room from this conference and onwards in the years to come. So today, our conference is going to focus on the already existing programs that are focused on the topic of domestic heating. And we would try to take a look in Bulgaria and around the region for the various programs and initiatives that have shaped the topic in the last few years. We are very happy to announce that in the first panel, we would have the chance to welcome Vihra Andonova from the Foundation of Euro Perspectives from Bulgaria. She is going to be telling us about the measures for the energy efficiency in the municipality of Bratigovo, where various types of solutions for heating through biomass and solar panels have been deployed. Then we would move on to our guest Stevan Vujanovic from the RES Foundation from Serbia, who will be telling us about their platform for smart stoves. And last in our panel, but not rated by importance, is our guest from the Ministry of Environment, Ms. Magdalena Dimitrova, who will be telling us a little bit about the initiatives under OP Environment in the programming period that is already over, and in the coming programming period where even more funds will be available. And I would now give the floor, as we aim to have not too much talking and greetings during this conference, to Vihra Andonova. Vihra, please let us know if everything is okay technically with sharing the screen.
Now I can hear you, and you can hear me probably?
Perfectly well, yes, Vihra.
Okay, now I'll try to share the screen, but I'm not allowed, sorry.
We'll try to resolve this right away.
Otherwise, I have sent the presentation. Okay, now I can do this. Fine. do you see the presentation?
Yes, absolutely fine.
Okay, so now technically, probably we are secured at that point. Okay, I will continue my presentation. Shall I do it in Bulgarian or in English? It doesn't matter for me.
Both are fine, whatever more convenient to you.
Okay, then I'll do it in Bulgarian, since it is written in Bulgarian. Ще разкажа съвсем накратко.
Good morning. I'm going to briefly tell you about a small municipality in Bulgaria. It has fewer than 10,000 people population. I'm going to tell you about its resolve to implement proper sustainable development and also to give its contribution to the reduction of harmful emissions and also to creating better living conditions for its citizens. It's located in southwest of Bulgaria, the main town being Braticovo, about 8,000 people population, and 6 picturesque villages along the slopes of the Rhodope Mountains. Irrespective of the fact that the Braticovo municipality is a small municipality, it has vast history. It was the Thracians who were here first, and they left us the golden treasure of Ravnogorovo. Mr. Kitov, our prominent archaeologist, discovered it about 30 years ago. This municipality was popular with its architectural school. There were very good builders who were educated there. What they left us as their heritage were different sites, specimen of their skills, including the Saint Sofia Church in Sofia. Saint Marina Church in Plovdiv was also built by them, so you can find traces of their architectural school everywhere in Bulgaria. We also have Natura 2000 protected areas. We have mineral water, tourist attractions and sites, and so on and so forth. So this makes it even more important for us to make sure that we have a sustainable development policy in the municipality. Back in 2015, our municipality joined the Covenant of Mayors. I just want to make sure you can see that the slides change, right? Because we've had technical issues. Everything's fine, perfectly fine. Okay, thank you. So back in 2015, we joined the Covenant of Mayors. We know that it's a prominent initiative taking steps in the area of climate and energy. Very early on, we developed an action plan for sustainable energy development of the municipality, the main goal being to reduce greenhouse gas emissions on the territory of the municipality. We also have an integrated action plan for sustainable energy development and respectively energy management in compliance with ISO 50001. One of the main stepping stones for the implementation of successful RES projects was the very early stage at which we developed a set of projects with energy audits, respective measures planned, and so on and so forth. We did that in order to make sure that whenever it was possible to identify funding sources, the municipality would be ready to come up with successful projects to be implemented at a later stage. What we have here on this slide are examples of several smaller scale projects. The first one is an installation for energy production. As you can see, it's on top of an already existing building in the town of Bratigovo. This building is the building of the former outpatient care clinic. But even today, it performs social functions because in this building, there are medical centers located, but also daycare centers for elderly people and a number of other social activities. They all take place in this building. In order to make sure that the use of the building is convenient enough and to reduce the energy consumption in this building, the municipality funded the project with its own municipal funds. The municipality built a small photovoltaic installation on the roof with polycrystal photovoltaic modules in order to be able to generate energy in this way. There is annual, monthly, and day-to-day monitoring of the system. And this energy which is produced is used for the own needs of the building, but when there is excess produced, it's provided to the electricity distribution company, in our case EVN, so that it can be further distributed via the network. The next site, which can give you more information as to how the municipality takes care of the young children in the municipality, has to do with the project for heating via biofuel and also hot water provision via solar panels in the building of one of the kindergartens in the municipality. It's called Bujura Fornagieva. The municipality managed to fund this initiative via funds from the Regional Development OP. While this part of the project was being implemented, what was done was for a heating system to be installed. A new water heater was also installed with the respective burner for pellets. The maximum power of the installation is 250 kilowatts. The whole installation was actually overhauled entirely in such a way so that the heat energy generated could be used properly. As we said, the hot water provided is used for the kitchen, for the toilets, for the bathrooms, and this heat comes from the solar panels installed. The next initiative that the Bratislava municipality undertook was to provide high-quality heating and also better comfort in one of the big cultural community centers. This cultural community center was built back in the 15th century. Apologies, says the speaker, at the beginning of the 20th century, rather. So it's a building of wonderful architecture, a big building. So there were challenges as to how it can be heated. Via this project, the municipality made successful efforts in terms of finding a proper solution. On the one hand, in order to provide thermal insulation, the proper doors and windows with better characteristics, but first and foremost, what was done was to rebuild and renovate the heating system, and the new RES energy source has a power of 697 kilowatts. What you can see here are our partners under the Coalesce project, a project devoted to local energy companies. Here our partners are also becoming familiarized with the fuel that this boiler uses. Another initiative of great use to the municipality is that we were one of the first municipalities that actually managed to implement the rehabilitation, the retrofitting of blocks of flats, living quarters. Thus, it was possible to reduce the energy consumption, to reduce the CO2 emissions, and of course the electricity bills for the people living in these buildings. We did that by introducing energy efficiency measures in these blocks of flats that you can see. Well, indeed, we did not manage to implement the next stage. It would have been perfect if we've managed to provide a renewable energy source for heating in these buildings. But anyhow, I believe that in further projects to be implemented in the future, this element would also be included and put into practice. So, as a result of the dedication and all the efforts that the municipality made in order to provide high quality of living for the people living on the territory of the municipality, and also all its efforts to provide heat and comfort to its citizens. So as a result of all of this, in 2016, we got the award for environmentally friendly municipality in Bulgaria. It's a fact that all the buildings from the social infrastructure, from the educational infrastructure, were buildings that underwent energy efficiency projects. Heating was provided via different types of RES fuel, such as pellets, for example, and different solar panel installations for hot water were also established. So more or less, this is a list of the successes that the municipality has managed to accomplish. Now, where do these funds come from? As you can see, the municipality has been successful in its application under different operational programs. The municipality has applied before different funding sources, such as the European Regional Development Fund, the EEA, also the Beautiful Bulgaria program. But on top of that, the municipality has allocated its own funds to such investments, even though this is not a very rich municipality. All the investments amount to more than 3 million euro. The ongoing energy savings are about 5 megawatt hours, and we have also managed to reduce the CO2 emissions emitted. The total energy costs for the municipality dropped by 40%, which is a great success. This allows the local authorities to make savings, which would then be invested in other types of infrastructure. Well, more or less, this was a brief presentation of the way in which the Brătigovo municipality, irrespective of the fact that it's a small municipality, it managed to provide for investments in energy efficiency in such a way so that all its citizens have proper heat and energy, and they can enjoy that. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vikra. Brătigovo is really a very unique municipality. I only a couple of months ago had my first in life opportunity to visit the municipality, and I learned from the mayor, from Mrs. Kazakova, that actually the replacement of domestic heating systems is really on a private basis and subsidy-free has taken off, and maybe up to 70% of the households in the urban area of Brătigovo have already replaced the heating. But we have to say that in many respects, for a municipality that is not a major big city, Brătigovo has its own economy and is a rather well-off municipality with its own traditions and things. And we're going to learn from other examples during the conference that it's not like this everywhere. We need to figure out solutions for everyone to be on board, basically, and really keep showing the way ahead. Indeed, with the public buildings have been the focus in the previous years, but I think that from now on, indeed, domestic heating is becoming more and more in the focus. I hope that Brătigovo will be able to find ways to really continue to improve also in this respect. These renovated multifamily buildings that you showed are a perfect target for new heating solutions. Now I would like to give the floor to our colleague from Serbia, Stevan Vojasinovic. Stevan, I'm sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing your surname, but this is because you've always been to me my colleague Stevan, and I know you by first name for so many years, and now I've somehow realized that probably I managed to say your surname wrong already a couple of times, so excuse me for that. But the floor is yours because we are very curious to learn about how the things are going on in Serbia. I've learned from your colleague, Alexander Matsura, that there has been a push for so many years to make progress on the domestic heating. Now let us know how it goes.
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. And don't worry, my surname is long, even by Serbian standards. So it's not unusual for people to attempt abbreviated versions. So that's okay. I'm very happy to be joining you. Thanks for having me. I'll just take a minute to see if I am able to share my screen. 1, 2, 3. Let's see how this goes. We can share on the host.
Give us a second to cross-check. It all goes, I think, perfect.
Is that okay? I don't know if you're able to see this.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
We're able to see this beautiful
okay.
stove.
Well, I will use, as far as I was able to look at the agenda, you had roughly 20 minutes planned per presenter. I think I can possibly save a few minutes as well, which is always nice. I will try to spend maybe 5-6 minutes just telling you about this regional project that we at REST Foundation are fortunate to be implementing since January 1st this year. And then I will spend the rest of my time basically sharing with you some of the initial conclusions that we were able to reach so far, with the focus on the actual subject of the conference being the public sector support mechanisms and how these research projects can produce the kind of evidence that can make the public sector interventions smarter and better targeted. So let's just skip this contents page and give you a very brief overview of what the whole project is about. Basically, we wanted, like you said, there was for years an advocacy effort attempting to impress upon the decision makers, not only here in Serbia, but across our region, the fact that our growing air pollution problem and generally a sustainable energy policy will not be feasible without fixing a dire problem of inefficient devices being used by an estimated 3 million plus old, outdated, inefficient wood-fired devices in what we are calling the Western Balkan 6. Hopefully most of our audience knows what that entails. That's basically the non-EU part of the Balkans: Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, Kosovo, Albania, and North Macedonia. And in this region, there is also the fact that we have the issue of time running out, given the market regulation is evolving in such a way that these devices will pretty soon no longer be allowed into these markets. So solutions are needed, and to make these solutions possible, we have kind of, I'll just skip this because this is more to do with a different kind of audience. We basically wanted to focus on 3 main pillars, as it were. One is to basically look at the technology assessments, which basically, and I need to just reiterate, given the variety of different aspects of the topic that we are discussing. Here in this project, we're only talking about households. We're not talking about public buildings at all. So individual households. And when speaking about these, we are basically trying to do 3 things. We want to have a comprehensive review of the technology options for the typology of buildings that we now actually have. That basically means, or the underlying hypothesis is that it's very difficult to come up with prescribed solutions that would fit everybody's needs. given the variety of different typologies of residential buildings and currently used devices, and a bunch of other factors as well. Just to give an illustration, we have users in urban areas, we have users of these stoves in rural areas, we have users in blocks of flats, in semi-detached houses, we have users in individual households, we have users in buildings which have very good and reliable power supply, but we also have users in houses which are more in rural settings, which don't necessarily have stable power supply. So I'm just giving a variety of instances where the point is to basically say that one needs to have a diversified approach to developing ideas about what's possible, what's feasible, and what would make most sense in terms of the technology for the replacement. And that in practice primarily means from the point of view of public policies and support mechanisms that have been implemented so far, moving from these outdated devices to more modern wood-firing devices, which are more efficient, to also applications of the heat pump technologies, inverters in more urban settings, more sophisticated electricity-based solutions, which I will talk about a little bit later on. So without going into too much details here, I'm keen to sort of get to the second part of what I want to share with you as soon as I can. The second pillar on top of the technology assessment obviously focuses on how do we make this happen in terms of making the financial support mechanisms available to people who need to upgrade their household heating devices. It's no secret, why people are relying on these old, inefficient devices. A crucial deciding factor is their price. We have these basic, for instance, just to give you an idea about what I know by heart in Serbia, the most basic, what we call Smederevac, because of this town of Smederevo, where one of these major factories is based, is probably 150 to 100 euros, whereas the kind of acceptable, let's put it this way, or more acceptable devices, more modern devices, which would be able to be distributed in more sophisticated European markets, which actually implement standards, would probably be around 700 euros. And the bad news is, obviously, for most people, especially those in the situation of, suffering energy poverty, people are making such decisions by way of looking to basically buy the cheapest that is available in the market. We don't know we will learn more by actually speaking currently to the manufacturing companies as part of this assessment, but unfortunately we hear that the market is such that raw materials, above all steel and other components, prices are on the up. So there is actually difficulty for manufacturers to even keep this differential to what it is now in terms of the prices, given that, for instance, steel is going up by double digits, and we're told that for most manufacturers, it will be practically impossible within months to avoid having to pass on this extra cost to consumers. So there are a variety of different dynamics making financing a real issue, but more than anything else, and I think this was mentioned already, making public support mechanisms properly targeted. We heard, and Gennady also mentioned, that the same is the case in this part of the region. Many users are already upgrading their devices with their own funding, making the smart investment decisions into the way that go about heating their homes. But for those people in energy poverty, that's just not going to be possible without publicly financed support programs. And in that respect, the challenge is growing. So I'll be sharing a little bit more insight about this in a minute. And then there's also this issue number 3, and perhaps too much information on the slide, but I just wanted to basically share the kind of stakeholders that we are in touch and how broadly we are going about bringing people together. If we are using this message of our project as a call to action, being smarter together, it essentially means bringing together people who so far have not been known to have a lot of experience in working together in partnership. So I will tell you a little bit more about it in a minute, but just to sort of identify the main kind of groups of stakeholders that we are looking to engage within this effort. We know, of course, that there will be support needed, and already there is much support available from international development organizations. There is national governments trying to act upon the growing public pressure, most often coming from the demands to do something about the air pollution problem, especially in urban areas. So there are growing number of national level stakeholders in all of these countries involved in trying to put together support mechanisms for households to upgrade their devices. There are more and more civil society organizations, but also here I wanted to stress that in addition to colleagues from, let's call it our sector, energy and environment, there are more and more civil society groups involved in supporting people in poverty, in delivering social welfare services, etc. So there's a growing, number of organizations with an interest in acting together. Obviously, I mentioned business, not just manufacturers, but importers, distributors, service providers, etc., and of course, local governments as well. I should mention that the insight, the analytical look into what's happening in individual countries would not be possible without our partner organizations, many of whom I'm sure you have heard about already. I've just basically listed them here. And for more details on individual country perspectives, I'm sure you can perhaps even inquire through me, but also reach out to these organizations who have been a wonderful resource in collecting information from individual markets. What we did so far is we had in each one of these markets a workshop with a bunch of most interested participants, including those public sector professionals who have been designing and implementing support mechanisms already. So I invite colleagues who would be interested in hearing what's happening in different markets in this particular part of the region to actually view these workshops. Most of the time they are about an hour's long sessions, which start with specific presentations from either national government spokespeople or local government colleagues presenting the most commonly used mechanisms of support so far. And I'll tell you just roughly what they have been so far. For the regional workshop, we have not recorded this. This is not a mistake that we don't have a link. We wanted to have a frank discussion without the recording, and there will be a chance to actually talk about regional perspectives some more, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And from these workshops, when you look at them, you see a whole bunch of people contributing a whole bunch of different perspectives. And what we have attempted to do is organize these perspectives into some kind of a ordered view of the situation. So we came up with this concept of this smarter heat value chain. It's not in the literature. It's just a way of us organizing the variety of different inputs that we have received. And I think this makes sense from a number of perspectives, but basically orders in the most basic form the kind of sequence of how the issue can be perceived. Number one is in the current setup, the fuel wood management that we have at present, which includes a whole bunch of issues related to the processing, which also includes harvesting of wood, storage and drying, as well as the burning of wood in the current setup, even with the current devices. We then turn to the whole bunch of different issues related to insulation of the current households, which is often leaving a lot to be desired. In actual fact, for buildings prior to some building codes implemented from the early 80s, basically we still have a lot of buildings without insulation. So a lot of considerations there given to how this applies to support mechanisms as a first step towards actually upgrading the device itself, which is not going to do a lot of help if these buildings don't receive an upgrade in terms of insulation. Then there is the issue of current devices, and then the change options in terms of something that I already outlined in terms of technology, not just of the technology that there is, but in terms of the actual suppliers who are available near you, as it were. So it's not always easy to make the assumption that everything that we know about is available to everybody in every part of the market. Then we come to financing, and only then at the very end, we come to public support mechanisms. And to give you an illustration why this matters, I thought I would just share what we thought were the most obvious issues coming out of these initial workshops and discussions with stakeholders and initial research. When it comes to fuel wood management, it's actually interesting to see that there is no, at least we haven't come across any publicly supported or supported by manufacturers or by any other stakeholder, like education or training programs or, any effort designed to support people in actually behaving in a rational manner with their current devices. We find that especially those people in energy poverty who are always prone to postponing their, costs to the maximum, that they can. We find that wood is harvested too late, almost at the beginning of the heating season, which means that they're burning wet wood, that they're not drying it properly, that it's not stored properly. We find that there is a very sort of opportunistic approach to what is being burned. So it's not just the fact that the device is old and inefficient. It's actually a lot of these habits and, behaviors are inappropriate even for the current device. And we don't find that there are any organized systems or initiatives in improving the level of knowledge and skills of the users already. It's many times it's just being taken as a given that people will do what they will do, and nobody's trying to intervene. When it comes to installation, again, especially for people in energy poverty, this is a cost item that often ends up being delayed or just beyond people's reach. When it comes to current device, I already mentioned inadequate handling, but also there is no maintenance. The attention is not being given to maintaining chimneys. And again, some of these issues I already mentioned, so I'll just skip this and go to the next option. When it comes to change options, like I said, a lot is there to be gained by actually not leaving the manufacturers and importers of these devices to their own, but actually offering some partnership initiatives which would bring together people who are interested in what is essentially market development. What needs to happen is for stakeholders to form a partnership, which is why we're calling it Smarter Together, and actually work in a coordinated way, which would basically address all corners of the market and bring the level of understanding and educate the demand for more modern devices, and bring about a smarter calculation of net present value and appraisal of the investment. Yes, the devices cost more, but there are savings in fuel costs over a period of time. So the return on investment is nowhere near as prohibitive than compared to what most people would assume, just on many times stereotypical perceptions. Financing, two major issues. What is being made available already is nowhere near what is needed. So it's more to do with emergency interventions by most often local level budgets. So local governments trying to respond to growing needs, most often resulting from the growing awareness about the air pollution issue, but also more sophisticated consumers and local communities wanting more modern solutions. People are aware of their issues and they want practical support. But in most cases, local government budgets are not able to provide the level of the amount of funding that's actually needed. So it's going to take a number of, if left to their own devices, this is going to take a very long time. You have big cities financing a few hundred, upgrades, few hundred households per annum. That's going to take a long, long time, given that we're talking about an estimated 3 million plus households. So more public money needs to be made available. central governments are investing more these days. When I say these days, over the last sort of year, 2 years. But again, it's just a drop in the sea of what's needed. And second problem, in addition to not enough funding being made available, is that whatever funding is available, most of the time is being made available in a way which excludes the energy poor from benefiting. So I know it's a generalizing statement, and please don't quote me on it, but most of the time, those who are in most dire needs for financial support actually end up being, in a variety of different manners, excluded from benefiting from these scarce resources. And I can tell more in a bit. So at the very end, what I can say about the actual public support mechanisms that we have identified so far across our region, whether or not they're at local level or at national level, there is this issue of what I've said here is no segmentation. So I think many policymakers are just now learning that this is a very diverse issue, and that it's not going to happen unless they have a diverse approach in terms of support mechanisms. So far, they've just had calls, to local municipalities and to households directly or indirectly to apply for support in terms of subsidizing either the replacement or interest rates for, loans to buy new devices or to invest in insulation of households. But these have been mostly designed in an approach which is kind of one size fits all, rather than having specific support products which fits, urban households which have insulated homes but just need the upgrade, or as opposed to that, separate, policy products targeted at rural households, which for a variety of reasons will end up continuing to burn biomass, but will just need a more modern device for biomass. So in that sense, there is much room to have a better targeted portfolio of public policy instruments, which would better target individual segments of, let's call it, a market. And then obviously there is this other major problem, which is the fact that there needs to be a diversification of beneficiaries of public support programs. For many people, the decision to invest into more modern devices and insulate their households is something that they will have afforded by themselves already. Yes, they will need to make careful choices, perhaps, appraise the investment and the return on the investment, but essentially, perhaps with existing retail banking loans, these households will be, are and will be, continue to be able to afford these kind of investments by themselves. Whereas at present, given the initiatives that we have seen so far, oftentimes they are subsidizing the people who can afford these upgrades already, whilst leaving other people who will never be able to invest, to fund the upgrades, basically for a variety of qualification criteria, unable to participate in these schemes. So we need public funding to work for those who are most in need, and support where needed. Maybe some people will buy the new devices and make the appropriate investments by themselves. Maybe there'll be a middle range where, interest rates can be subsidized to make this more affordable, or, have a variety of different kinds of co-financing options. But for a great many households, they will need to be given a new, basically, a new device that they will not be able to co-finance at all. So in that respect, I think it's obvious already there will be a need for segmentation. A few bits and pieces on, colleagues might be interested in what they can expect. These are the variety of different, focus areas that we're looking at right now to be able to inform these tailor-made or segmented policy instruments. So we are looking at the, assumptions about biomass as a renewable resource and its climate, impacts. We are reevaluating, where is the current biomass heating technology, what's going to be available, and what will be the most affordable options for, for upgrades. We're looking at heat pumps and solar technologies and what that means in our region, in different parts of our region, and not just from the technology point of view, but from the market development point of view. Who do we have in terms of suppliers? What are the prices like? What are the market trends? How are the different segments of the market responding already? Typology of buildings, financing methods, also looking at, I suppose I can call that blended finance in terms of disregarding the source of the finance, but actually seeing how these can be made to work in a coordinated fashion, from retail banks to local level financing, local level government, to national funding, to coordinating all this with whatever is available by means of international development funding. What are the implications for the labor market? Do we have the skills needed? What about the distribution networks? It's a big and diverse region. Installation, support services, replacement of devices. What happens to 3 million old devices? Obviously, we don't want these ditched into, riverbanks and, irresponsible waste management practices. And also we have a specific effort invested into how the approach to the massive change out would be informed by social and behavioral analysis, where we look into these fundamental questions of, are people prepared to relinquish their smedereas? Can there be a real sarma or ivar without a wood-fired stove? I'm kidding, but there's a lot of traditions. People are not necessarily aware of the fact that these devices are a problem, and a lot of them will not want to change their devices without appropriately designed communication and awareness strategies. I invite you to visit this website. We have a project website which attempts to upgrade information, if not on a daily basis, definitely on a weekly basis. And I use the opportunity to conclude my introduction by inviting you to our regional workshop on December 2nd, where we will actually present, given that we're in the middle of our project, I'm sorry that we were not able to present the prescribed solutions as we see them from the research that's actually ongoing right now. But if you join us on December 2nd, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to actually present the findings from these individual devices and individual analysis, and then perhaps give a kind of A's to Z's of the possible rational policy interventions that would make a mass change-out scheme feasible at soon as possible date. I'll stop there because I'm aware of time. I'll give you guys a chance to ask me questions and direct my, additional comments later on.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thanks again for having me.
The idea is that we pack all questions at the very end of this panel. So if you don't mind, we will switch quickly to the next presenter. Even me, it's really itching to ask you a bunch of questions. I already have listed so much, and there are so many important parallels that we need to draw between the two countries. Congratulations for the initiative. It's really very well done, to keep everything communication-wise under one roof. And I think that we'll be literally copying from you many ideas, because it's done in a really smart way, this Smart Stoves initiative. I would strongly encourage you to join the session on the financial instruments that we'll have in the next days, because there I hope that we'll be a little bit closer to finding some resolutions to some of the problems that you posed. Now, I would like to switch to Magdalena Dimitrova from the Ministry of Environment and Waters. Maggie, can you try your microphone, please?
Здравейте, приятно ми е да ви видя.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to have you. We are very happy to have you too. I'm going to ask you to share the screen now for me, but if you cannot do that technically, we can talk in general. Perfect, it's already shared. Just let me know when to share to change the slides. Yes, please, could you go to the first one? I would like to start by thanking you for this wonderful opportunity to participate in this conference and to present one of the big challenges for the OP environment. For the first programming period, we do have budget allocated to be invested in air quality. Over the course of implementation of the program, this budget was increased to 576 million Bulgarian lev, which is approximately 290 million euro. It's a great amount for a start, I would say. Bulgaria did not used to have serious experience in investments in improvement of ambient air quality. I would very briefly like to present to you what we invested in. We invested in an information system to report data about the quality of ambient air as part of our national real-time monitoring system. It's an important requirement because we need data, we need information in order to know what exactly the issue consists of and how we need to target our investment in terms of scale. What we also do is support municipalities in order for them to develop or update the municipal programs on ambient air quality. For stakeholders who are not from Bulgaria, I would like to let you know that according to the ambient air quality law in Bulgaria, it's the municipalities that are accountable for the ambient air quality on a municipal level. What we do on a national level is to develop policies. All municipalities who are in violation. In Bulgaria, our most prominent issue is with particulate matter, but irrespective of whether it's particulate matter or any other air quality indicator, it's the municipalities who are obliged to develop a municipal ambient air quality program. They need to include analysis, studies, budget, and measures to implement in order to cope with that. Under the current programming period, we managed to provide support to the bigger part of municipalities who have issues with clean air. So we supported them in the development of such programs. Now, as to measures for improving ambient air quality, under this heading, I'm going to talk about the procedure very soon. So here we're talking about changing out stoves, traditional ones for stoves which operate on RES. Another important measure has to do with addressing transportation as a pollution source. In other words, replacing old diesel-fueled buses with electric buses. Thank you. That was it for this slide. Can you please switch to the next one? As you know, there is a ruling against Bulgaria in the ECJ because of way too high levels of particulate matter in almost 28 municipalities in Bulgaria. Burgas, Vidin, Dimitrovgrad, Plovdiv, Smolen, and Montana and Sofia municipality are municipalities which were part of the consultations with the European Union services, and they became beneficiaries at a later stage. The interesting thing about this procedure is that it's a two-stage procedure. The total budget, more than 111 million euro. Well, it might seem quite a lot of money, but it turns out that once this budget is divided to the different needs, it turns out that we can cover at most, on average, 10% of the needs of municipalities for replacing the fossil fuel burning stoves or any other heating devices with ones for alternative fuel. Next slide, please. What's interesting to know about this procedure is that it's a two-stage procedure, as I mentioned. Since Bulgaria lacks experience, over this programming period, the municipalities got the opportunity to perform in-depth analysis and surveys in order to be able to provide proper argumentation to the investment part of the project. During the first stage, they were supposed to carry out sociological surveys in order to look into the perceptions, the views of the citizens on the territory of the respective municipality, which who use coal and wood for their stalls. Awareness raising campaigns were also part of this. The goal was to raise awareness about the dangers of fine particulate matter in ambient air. And the most important thing was to raise awareness and make sure that citizens are aware that they have the opportunity to apply before the municipality and replace their heating devices with new ones of new generation. We try to get better efficiency of investments. As you know, in certain boroughs, in certain neighborhoods, there are buildings which are heated predominantly with wood and coal. It would be great to target these particular buildings because the effects would be better in this way. Another thing that the municipalities were supposed to develop, and we believe that they did it in a great way, was to prioritize applicants who apply to receive this grant for replacing their old heating devices, which would later on be recycled. One of the most important criteria was set by the municipalities in a very flexible way because they have this flexibility. So during the first stage, they got this freedom in order to set criteria for prioritization. Anyhow, these criteria include energy efficiency of the building, which is very logical, as you can see. It would be much more efficient to replace the heating device in a place where the woods and where the doors and windows have already been replaced and there is better energy efficiency. Another criterion that we've taken into consideration is energy poverty, because it's very important to support precisely the people who are very unlikely to be able to afford anytime soon such a change, such a replacement of their heating devices, old heating devices. At the same time, points are allocated for the choice of a device. In other words, devices which create the least pollution with fine particulate matter would get more points. I'm here referring to devices on gas, for example, or eco-design, air conditioners, because eco-design stoves emit fine particulate matter, or any other stove which burns pellets or other type of fuel resembling that. Despite all our concerns, because we were faced with a big challenge, it was the first time we were doing that, it was a challenge for everybody, for the municipalities, for the consultants and so on. But nevertheless, by the 31st of May, all municipalities have managed to finalize their first stage of the initiative. Some of them did it earlier, so they already have updated responses to the financial support they're going to get. I suppose, and I hope rather, that the municipalities who have managed to launch the tenders already to be able to finalize this by the end of the year. You all know that the best time to carry out such a change would be in spring, autumn, and summer. So I hope that next year we will be able to start this process, this change-out process on a mass scale, and to start recycling, of course, the old devices. This is an obligatory condition that we set, and this is part of the circular economy. You all know that the waste sector in its own terms has a huge contribution to the emission of particulate matter in the ambient air. That's why by recycling these devices, we make sure that nobody will be tempted to use their old heating device burning wood and coal. So our procedure is currently going into its second stage. I do hope that our colleagues, the organizers, will be able to organize such an event next year as well, at which we will be able to present, hopefully, real results from this change-out. According to the initial data we get from the implementation of the first stage, this is a forecast I would like to highlight though. It's a forecast because this information is based on sociological surveys, but also on applications for interest on the part of end beneficiaries. That would be the households. Our ambition is to cover about 25,000 households. We believe that that's a good goal to set as part of this first procedure that we implement. The indicative value of emission savings is approximately 750 tons annually. Again, this is a forecast. We can have the final results at the end of 2023 because everything in this procedure is depending on people's will to participate and their free will. Bulgaria and Bulgarian municipalities do not have low emission zones, meaning that there is a ban on heating devices on wood and coal, burning wood and coal. This, in fact, means that us and municipalities are completely dependent on the free will of the citizens. In other words, citizens need to be motivated properly to be convinced that they should do that. Last but not least, any citizen who has already lodged an application saying that they would like to switch to an AC heating, but because of potential increase in prices of CO2 emissions, when the contract is signed, then all of a sudden this citizen might decide to change their mind and switch to pellets or gas. We would be reticent to lose even a single client. So that person would be granted the opportunity to switch from AC heating, which was initially declared, to a pellet burning device. Because for us, it's important to not lose this person as a customer. Yes, indeed, pellets would result in emitting fine particulate matter into ambient air. And as a result, this would have an impact on the indicators that we will be able to account for at the end of the initiative. Next slide, please. I would like to say a couple of words about OP environment, the new OP for the period 2021-2027, the new program, as I would refer to it for brevity. The new programming period has already started. There are already criticisms to the managing authorities why the programs have not been launched yet, and so on and so forth. Well, the first step is to adopt the regulations on an EU level. We need to also adopt national legislation and to finalize the negotiations with the European Commission. We already have a fourth draft of our program on the website www.funds.bg. What we are currently waiting for is to get the comments on the part of the European Commission on our fourth draft of the program. So we do hope, because after all, this is the trend all over Europe. In the previous programming periods, the programs were adopted 1 or 2 months before the launch of the programming period. So it was our desire in December 2020 to have the regulations ready. This would have resulted in a much speedier process in the implementation of these projects on the territory of the whole of Europe, and also this would have also affected positively the work of our colleagues in the European Commission, because they cannot operate without an efficient, properly approved and adopted framework either. Now, very briefly, as in the current programming period, that is up to 2020, but also in the new programming period, the main priorities would be water, biological diversity, waste, risk and climate change, air, and as in any other OP, technical assistance. Next slide, please. We have pinpointed a couple of indicative measures. The most important measure, though, which is also lodged into our 2 main national programs on ambient air quality. Those are programs developed with the support of the World Bank team, are measures to reduce ambient air pollution from household heating. In other words, changing devices burning coal and wood for devices which provide new, more environmentally friendly alternatives. This is where the main budget would be focused on. Another important measure is the reduction of pollution from transportation. We are not going to invest in changing the rolling stock of public transport in the cities where there is worse quality of ambient air. We are going to invest in improving the national monitoring system for ambient air quality. We really need to make sure that our system is up to date with the European level. Also, we are going to have measures targeting secondary atomization. These are also measures supporting the main measure that we intend to implement. The European Commission has a very positive view on these measures. These are measures that have to do with landscaping, not the type of landscaping under OP regional development though. We're going to have targeted landscaping with species which are non-invasive, but they capture fine particulate matter. In other words, we're going to extend the areas of parks, landscape for places where there isn't any, for example, in between blocks of flats. We know that there is mud everywhere in between the blocks of flats, where green areas are unlawfully used for parking lots, so the cars then disseminate this mud everywhere. We can also have green corridors along very busy major boulevards in bigger cities as well. Awareness raising measures are another type of measures which I would like to mention here. Citizens need to be properly motivated. Experts in municipalities also need to keep up to date with their qualifications, so this is another measure. We need to also develop new strategic, detailed documents. If need be, we also have to carry out new scientific research in the area of ambient air quality and anything that has to do with the development of any documents related to improving the ambient air quality in general. Next slide, please. As you can see here, the indicative budget under the measure is quite substantial. The final number we will be able to declare once we are done with the negotiations with the European Commission. At this point, we plan ₹500 million lev for better air quality in Bulgaria. This kind of air that we would like to breathe in bigger and smaller towns and cities in Bulgaria. We are going to focus on municipalities where the ambient air quality is lower, especially the municipalities covered by the ruling of the ECJ, a ruling of 2017. That's a ruling dedicated to the fact that Bulgaria does not abide by the limit values for fine particulate matter. These municipalities need to have updated municipal program in compliance with the ambient air quality law in Bulgaria. This needs to be updated for the year when the application is lodged. That's a topic of priority to the Ministry of Environment and Waters, and as a result of that, one of the first procedures that we are in a rush to have approved by the monitoring committee so that we can launch this procedure, so that we can invite the municipalities to participate. Our goal is in the first 6 months of 2022 to have this ready. Our colleagues know that even if our ambition was even bigger to start this earlier, it would be technically impossible because we need time to set up a monitoring committee to develop its rules and regulations so that this monitoring committee can later on approve the criteria that we've developed. Then the guidelines need to be developed by the municipality. These guidelines need to undergo a public discussion stage. So there are technical and administrative procedures and deadlines which we cannot skip. So this is the realistic deadline. And now very briefly about lessons learned. Both the municipalities and the ministry already know what this is all about. So we're not going to go for a two-stage solution. We are going to implement this initiative on a one stage so that in 2021, when the current procedure and the future ones will be merged, we are going to have a very serious approach already in place so that tens of thousands of municipalities can have their old heating devices replaced for more environmentally friendly alternatives. Another lesson learned has to do with the fact that citizens do find it difficult to fill their application in. I mean, not everybody can be an expert in heating devices. So we're going to provide funding for teams to visit the households themselves so that these teams can present on the one hand the different alternatives and then to make a proposal for the most appropriate alternative. In Vidin, everybody says it would be great to have central heating or gas, but unfortunately, none of these alternatives is applicable or available in the town of Vidin. We also observed that some of the campaigns were not efficient enough. So people did not really get more information about the fact that they can apply and have their devices replaced. So the managing authority is going to have a national campaign. This big national campaign carried out by the managing authority will go simultaneously with the smaller scale campaigns to be carried out on the territory of the municipalities themselves. Basically, that's it from me. I'm looking forward to your questions.
За тази презентация. Имаме реакции, че тя е посрещната.
Thank you very much, Magdalena, for this presentation. Indeed, everyone has seen how long a journey you have made since the outset of these measures. This is also obvious from the substantial budget that you have planned for the measures. I congratulate you for what you have done and what you're planning to do in order to improve the situation even further. Our team would like to especially thank you for always being there for us when we request that. Of course, the NPO sector tends to ask questions that some public institutions would not be so willing to answer. So thank you for always being there.
The presenters so far, and we would still have about 10 minutes before the coffee break, individual coffee breaks, so that everyone can grab a refresher. But we would like to have your questions on board now to the presenters. Not that we don't have, I already mentioned that we are itching with some. There was a question to Magdalena Dimitrova from Violeta Amzina, who is ex-staff of the Ministry of Regional Development and now working for EVN, focusing on the topic whether there will be support for measures on domestic hot water in buildings that are already already connected to district heating networks. So would the new program support those type of measures?
По принцип и в настоящия програмен период.
Even in the current programming period, generally, but I'm not talking about the district heating. I'm talking about internal building installations for gas heating and pellet burners. This includes the purchase of boilers and the installation itself. This is also included in the current operational program, but the current decision is to provide only the boilers free of charge. We need to clarify the question of building installations. So you only mean the pipes. Indeed, that's how I interpret the question. I'm about to start writing the guidelines. I'm an economist. I'm not a heating engineer. So we need to avoid state aid. District heating companies and district gasification companies are private companies. So all the pump stations and other elements of their infrastructure cannot be provided with state aid because this is not an eligible expense. It's up to the beneficiaries to decide whether they'll cover the setup of their internal installations. We leave a leeway to them.
I'd like to have some feedback and question to Stefan. And the question is, first, a quick update on what is happening, for example, with the colleagues from Bosnia and Herzegovina who were presenting their Tuzla program for heat pumps last year. What we learned this year, and it was the major update, is that basically the town program has also included support for new biomass stoves, say pellet stoves or other high standard biomass heating. You have been mentioning the biomass topic as well. Considering that in so many places around Western Europe, biomass is already under siege, but here on the Balkans, it seems that all of us are working on modern biomass. Why do you think is that? Do you think that we are investing in the wrong solution, or is there still space for it because there's so much? There's definitely an amount of biomass that can be used sustainably here on the Balkans if it's burned locally and used for heating in an affordable way. What is your opinion, Stefan?
Okay. In line with what I said previously, very difficult to say one statement that kind of answers your question directly. I think it really depends on the perspective. I would say, for instance, that yes, in our region, there's still a lot of conversation about biomass, but I have not mentioned also that it's obvious that it depends on the perspective of the analysts. Some will say that in parts of our region, fossil gas is being given, a kind of focus that's just not appropriate to our, efforts to decarbonize our energy, And that's certainly the case also with a lot of the household heating decisions being made by households across our region, in Serbia especially. So it's not just, the case of we really need to look at biomass and see what future there is for biomass in a kind of sustainable, carbon neutral, climate responsible energy policy. But that goes across the board for all the fuels. I think there's a variety of reasons why biomass in our region perhaps is still being considered in a way that's perhaps more, inclusive, flexible than would be the case elsewhere in Europe. Parts of our region actually have limits in terms of the supply side options, For parts of our region, not even fossil gas is going to be an option. Electricity supply will not be as reliable as would be required by the most modern, AC devices. Like I said earlier, we also will look at social and behavioral factors. Many households in our region actually have their own forests. People harvest, especially in rural settings. They don't procure wood in the market. They actually have a functional way of, running their rural households as small economic, units, which include their own forests being used for harvesting their own firewood. So there's, I think, a variety of different factors. Having said that, I actually would also say, rather than make any kind of recommendation, I would strongly support this notion of not any financial support mechanism being also, when we say smarter together, that means in a whole bunch of different ways, including advisory services. If people talk to users, they will learn, and obviously there will be a diverse set of different inputs, but we're trying to develop a typology of experiences. People are actually happy to share their experience. At the end of my presentation, I have a very interesting video, which I refrained from sharing because of the time pressures. I didn't want to ruin the agenda that you're trying to lead. But if you give me 3.5 minutes, I think that's going to be useful in the sense that we might be able to just like meet a user, and she shares a lot of her insights about why she uses biomass and how she uses it.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I will just say share screen. I will go to my PowerPoint. I will go share, and hopefully I will go to my last slide. And I will introduce you to our friend Zora from the village of Dubona, not that far away. Hang on. Can you just indicate if you're able to see the screen by a thumbs up?
We can see, yes, we can see.
Okay, and I will just roll it back. So this is maybe half an hour drive south of Belgrade. So this is not like some extra distant part of the country, but like very close to the capital city, okay? We wanted to speak to somebody who is in a rural setting, and we wanted to find out about how and why she decides what she does.
Bolje greje, brže kafa stigne, manje drva trošim, sve u fulu. Za Smederevce sam trošila dvoja kolica, znači 2 vremena, to je bilo hladno, ali drva odlazi. Znači ide u vazduh od nas, u selu u Boni, većinom ima Smederevaca, narod nema mogućnosti, znači greje se na Smederevac, iako je i cepan, iako je puko, on ga krpi. Znamo da bi trebali da doteramo u julu mesecu drva, da se to osuši, da to bude suvo. Mi u letnjoj sezoni imamo branje bresaka, branje višenja, branje jabuka, kad su pare, znači mi doteramo drva kad stignemo. Nema veze, u juli, avgust, septembar. A mi smo planirali pre da ga kupimo, ali mi smo bili u mogućnosti i onda smo videli kod komšije da ispriča da je zadovoljan, da je stvarno ubacuje velika drva, da nisu cepana, da samo pokaže, loži i beži od njega. Sad smo shvatili da nam je, hvala Bogu, bolje i toplije i bolje nam peče, pogotovo za nas, za selo, za seoske domaćinstvo. Žene koriste kod nas peć, jer ljudi samo doteru drvo i to je to. Kod kući i oko kući, pogotovo u kući bi trebalo da se pitaju žene. Peglanje, pranje, spremanje, postavljanje, dočekavanje, sve zavisi od žene.
Thank you, Stefan, for reminding us the very reality outside the bigger cities in our region, because indeed this is I think everywhere around the Balkans and the sea region as well.
Anyways, I'm thankful for the opportunity, because I think these guys rarely get a chance to be seen in policy forums, etc., you know. And I just thought I would use the opportunity to share this with you.
Thank you. There's now a question, and after actually a couple of questions, and after that I'm closing this session so that we can all get the chance for a quick break before the next panel. There's a question to Magdalena in the chat from Milan Rashevsky asking if heat pumps that are geothermal, basically with drilling, will be supported by the new program. Yes or no, I guess is the answer.
Абсолютно няма никакъв проблем. Ако общините го
Definitely. That would be not a problem at all, as long as municipalities include it in their application forms. This is an eligible cost. Of course, unless the European Union is of a different opinion.
Dimitrova, but I guess that's easy through the webpage and the team on the webpage of Ministry of Environment and Waters.
Programming at moevgovernment.bg.
Super. Thank you very much. And last a question from our panelist, Vihra Andonova. Vihra, you could have just posed the question to everyone else in the straight away in just saying it.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
This is just linked to the discussion raised earlier about the fossil fuel regarded as not good for the future, and also the issue of the central heating increasing prices in constantly. We are facing this more and more. So there are tendencies to set up small local heating districts, so to say, by type of community energies. Is that an issue for the future development? Because bringing people back to the central heating could be more expensive. And on top of that, central heating is completely related to fossil fuel. So there are some kind of new tendencies in this area. And for the cities, could be possible to find new solutions in that respect.
Yeah, Vihra, I would rather accept this as a food for thought than something that requires an immediate question, an immediate answer from the rest of the panelists, because it's really a huge topic, and we need to consider the options for community power, basically in the next decade as much as we can, so that we can democratize the energy system. I would now close this session, and I would ask everyone else, I'm sorry that we were slightly into the coffee break of everyone, but 40 past, I hope that everybody will be back so that we can continue with the next panel and a few more interesting presentations that we foresee for this day. Thank you very much. I see our first presenter already. Camera on. Welcome, Mr. Molov. Здравейте, господин Молов.
Добре дошли.
Ще си позволя само няколко въвеждащи слайда в темата, преди да стартираме, като овервю на съществуващите програми и веднага ви давам думата, за да продължите. As a presenter, I'll abuse a little bit with the time on this panel just to provide a quick overview of some of the existing programs and how we see them as civil society actors from outside the very institutions that are trying to implement those programs. Back in 2017, there was an idea to start a project. Apologize, but I have difficulty with the controls. Back in 2017, there was an idea that a pilot project would be implemented targeting domestic heating. It was started by Sofia Municipality, targeting only 30 households, but the idea of this project was to basically just walk the path when it comes to public tenders, constructing the selection criteria, and then eventually scaling up. Sofia Municipality used a budget of 35,000 euro from their own municipal budget to implement this in the district of Novi Iskar. It was a successful project. It was fully implemented by 2019, and then this basically accelerated into a couple of other funding opportunities, the biggest of which we already heard was the program under OP Environment, but there's another ongoing project with a budget of nearly 17 million euro spread between a couple of municipalities. This is a project that is funded by the European program LIFE with 60% of EU contribution, targeting about 10,440 households. And you can see the number of households targeted in the different municipalities that are part of this project. So Sofia, Burgas, Ruse, Montana, Stara Zagora, and Veliko Trnovo participate with the biggest chunk of households targeted in Sofia municipality. The total savings of emissions under this program when it comes to fine particles is 160 tons. We already heard that OP Environment is aiming to save about 750 tons of PM10. 74 tons of this are going to be saved by Sofia Municipality. This is how the same, what we know is how the funds under OP Environment, already mentioned by Mrs. Dimitrova, are spread around. And our next speaker, Mr. Hamdimolov, will be speaking exactly about how this program is organized in the municipality of Smolen, which is a municipality of just 5,000 homes, but already 3,000 homes, as far as we know, will have this replacement during the implementation of the program. Just as a final thing and food for thought for the conference, what we see as pluses and minuses in the current programs, there are already municipalities that are well advancing, especially when it comes to informing their citizens and structuring their programs, reaching out to their populations. I think we can already see this with a couple of the municipalities under OP Environment and the LIFE project. We still lack very much in Bulgaria proper financial instruments that are accessible, interest-free within reasonable terms and payback period, and that combine also at a reasonable share a grant component. So if it's, let's say, if we target more energy poor households, maybe having a higher grant component, if there are families that are better off and that can afford more expensive systems, then limit the amount of grant that can be used only as an incentive, and then provide the option for their own contribution to play in and to kick in. We, as an organization from Zazemiata, have multiple times expressed our concern about the very high grant components in various programs that have been used so far. We know the reasons, but this has been an issue for us. And yes, I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Molov with his presentation. Can you inform me that if you're able to share your screen with us? Успявате ли с споделянето на екран? Чудесно. Още веднъж, добре дошли.
Вижда ли се?
Да, вижда се идеално. Не сте на фул скрин обаче, но не знам, може би така, имате предвид, ако искате, може да включите. Така е.
Вижда ли се сега?
Да, чудесно се вижда. Благодаря.
Искам само да разбера, вижда ли се презентацията?
Вижда се и ви чуваме
чудесно.
Can you
see my presentation? Yes, we can see it perfectly and we can hear you perfectly.
Димолов и съм главен експерт. Главен експерт в община Смолян и ще се опитам
Hello, my name is Handimolov. I'm an engineer and the Smolyan municipality's chief expert. I will present the particulars of application under the environment operational program and the implementation of projects. I will first focus on projects in the field of air quality we have already applied with. The first of the two projects is a municipal program to improve air quality. The second one is measures to improve air quality in the municipality. I'll briefly present each of the two projects and with its context and results. The first project, as I said, was the development of a municipal program to improve air quality. Pursuant to Article 27 of the Air Quality Act, all municipalities with high particulate matter rates are required to develop such a program. We did have an old program for the period 2015-2020. In 2019, we applied for support to develop our next program. We already have our current program covering the period from 2021 to 2025. The program has been published on the Smolyan municipality's website. After the dispersion modeling and analysis, we discovered that household heating is the largest producer of particulate matter. 84% of particulate matter is accounted for by domestic heating. Then transport, 10.5%, and all the other sources account for a little more than 5%. While producing my presentation, I used information from the automatic measuring station in our municipality. This slide shows data going back 3 heating seasons, from September 2018 to basically to March 2021. You see that our municipality has a serious issue with particulate matter during the winter heating seasons. In parallel, a water pipeline replacement project has been underway in our municipality. It has started recently, and within that project, excavation works are expected in 70% of the city. Despite these excavation works that generate particulate matter, you see that the peaks in particulate matter are in the winter heating season. On the next slide, I have shown the number of instances when the particulate matter quantities in the air exceeded the tolerable maximums. Since 2015, the number of such instances has been declining. But in 2020, the number of such instances was still twice as much as would be acceptable. Since 2017, the concentration has been below 40 micrograms, which means that the smaller municipality has been within the national limits. Here, I have shown a little bit of demographics. You see the population numbers have been declining over the past decade. You see that the population of our municipality has declined by almost 10,000 people in the past decade. This, of course, naturally leads to a decline in the quantity of particulate matter rates. Now, the second project I wanted to present is the project concerning the measures to improve air quality. Here, I have shown you the history of the project, how the project was improved. In 2018, the Ministry of Environment and Water invited us to preliminary talks, and these talks included all potential beneficiaries. Beneficiaries were rated by specific eligibility criteria. Here on this slide, I have shown that unless a municipality had its regulations and strategic programs, the funding authority wouldn't provide funding. In 2019, when we applied, we already did have an updated municipal program to improve air quality in the municipality. So in the program itself, we identified domestic heating, domestic solid fuel heating, as the main source of particulate matter and air pollution. The third eligibility criterion is the following. The municipal program provides for the replacement of inefficient heating devices in households. Of the 27 municipalities, 2 improved their particulate matter situations. So 25 municipalities remained with exceeding particulate matter quantities. Now, another quality criterion is regulatory measures. We did have them. Based on these criteria, the Ministry of Environment invited 7 municipalities, including our municipality of Smolen. The funding provided was 9.6 million Bulgarian lev. I want to thank Ms. Dimitrova for the good communication with the Ministry of Environment. As Ms. Dimitrova mentioned, the measures included 2 stages in improving air quality. During the first stage, our tasks included studying population attitudes, organizing and implementing an awareness campaign, analyzing the types of heating in the different districts, developing a prioritization mechanism for investments and retrofitting of buildings, and also some economic analysis. I'll now dwell on the study of population attitudes. We conducted that in November 2020. Our method was a semi-standardized interview, including 40 special questions. We surveyed 4,165 residents, meaning more than 11% of the population, given that the municipality's population is a total of 35,000 residents. One of the questions I want to focus on is the question, what kind of home does your household live in? You see that half of the population live in apartment buildings, and this is in the town of Smolen. In the villages, their rate is much smaller, of course. 7% live in smaller apartment buildings with not more than 4 floors. The rest live in houses. Another important question is the degree of retrofitting of the household home. You see how small the percentage of retrofitted homes is in our municipality. It's important to note that in the period 2008 to 2010, the municipality of Smolen retrofitted 10 apartment buildings using funding from the Ministry of Regional Development and UNDP. In 2015 to 2017, approximately 30 apartment buildings were retrofitted. In the period 2020-2021, under the Regions in Growth program, approximately 12 apartment buildings have been retrofitted. Currently, a total of 52 out of the 179 big apartment buildings have been retrofitted in the municipality. One of our priorities is indeed retrofitting all buildings.
Another important thing to remember when we talk about retrofitting, we need to point out is that 57% of our population say that they heat their homes with wooden coals, 37 electricity, 12 pallets. According to the National Statistical Institute, by 2011, in Smolensk, there are about 12,000 households in total. There is, of course, a trend for reduction of this number. So at this point in time, in fact, we have about 8,000 households in total. One of the answers given by the respondents is a little bit disturbing. You can see this here. Currently, we can say that society at large is not necessarily willing to switch to a more efficient type of heating devices. 52% of the respondents say that they wouldn't go for a change of their device. So out of a total of 8,000 households, 4,000 say that they are not willing to change the way they heat their homes. So as a result, the municipality from this point on really needs to focus on awareness raising among the population. Another interesting issue is that should such funding be provided, 2,445 households in total would go for a heating system change. This survey actually corresponds well to the applications that have been filed. I'm referring to the applications filed under the OP. Out of 2,881 applications, we can currently provide funding to about 2,230 households. Later on in my presentation, I'm also going to talk about the types of devices that we are going to fund and so on and so forth. As to the awareness raising campaigns, I can say the following. The Smolensk municipality has set up a green hotline where citizens can call with their questions about the OP, how they can apply, and they can also discuss any questions related to environmental protection there. About 3,000 information leaflets were handed out to the citizens, and we kept publishing information about such initiatives on the website of the Smolensk municipality. This information can also be found there, there even now. We developed a video which was broadcasted 90 times on regional media. We also carried out 7 educational meetings at public places. The goal of these meetings being to clarify the goals of the project, who is eligible to apply, and so on. Another type of activity which is of importance and on the basis of which we studied everyone who submitted their applications. As I mentioned, these were 2,881 households. We had a partial certificate for each household as to the extent of retrofitting, the type of heating system that is currently used, and so on and so forth. These were all measures undertaken in the short, long, and medium term. We discussed the stages at which households could switch to an alternative type of heating. I would like to point out that back in 2019, when we started signing the grant agreements with the ministry, we launched also deadline for submitting applications under this project. So anyone willing to apply could do that. At the first call for proposals, because there are 3 already, at the first call there were about 2,200 households who applied. Then, on the second call for proposals, another 136 applications were lodged. At the very last possible point in time to go for that kind of an alternative, we got another 405 households who lodged their applications to replace their current heating systems with alternative ones. As a result of all the studies carried out, we got to this table that you can see here. So we can fund about 2,235 households with the financial means that we currently have at our disposal. And I would like to point out that the respective funds are allocated for the demounting of the devices currently in place. These devices will be treated in compliance with the regulations of the Waste Treatment Act. As to the results of the implementation of this project, I can say the following. The baseline value for FPM that we are to reach on an annual basis, that is kilos per year, is 273 kilos annually. Once we implement the project, we are going to get to 53 tons per year. This, I would like to go back to 170 to 3 tons. Out of them, we're going to reach 51 tons. So our indicator would be 221 tons annually. That's the target value. We are going to be able to provide this with the funding allocated for the period 2014-2020. But this project is going to carry over up until 2023. For the forthcoming period, on the basis of our analysis, we will be able to fund, of course, should we get the funding, we will be able to fund another 2,300 households. In other words, we will be able to reach 100 tons by 2027, for the municipality, I mean. That was it from me. Thank you very much for your attention. I would also like to thank you very much for your presentation. Indeed, your municipality is going to serve as an example because you are one of the municipalities who points out domestic heating as one of the biggest issues for the municipality, and such a wide scope replacement of the current heating systems would be most probably of great impact. So we will be really looking into your results, and we do hope that we're going to have you as speakers on our regular conferences devoted to domestic heating and
I thank Mr. Molov for this presentation, and we'll be now switching to another project and another topic, which is very much focused on sustainable domestic heating in a rather holistic way, and very much focused on the region here in the Balkans, as most of the participants in this project are actually countries from the Balkans and regions from the Balkans, with a few more regions from Central and Southwest Europe. As we're gonna learn, the interesting thing about the Replace project is that it really tries to avoid the confusion between, you know, let's have clean air in the urban areas, but do not consider the climate, which could be just moving straight away to some sort of use of electricity, which can be quite detrimental for the climate and generally for the environment elsewhere. If we have a dirty electricity mix like it's in Bulgaria and in most of the other places over the Balkans, or if we focus, for example, too much on the climate, like burning firewood, which is more or less climate friendly with a few disclaimers here, but could result in severe polluting emissions within the urban areas. Angel Nikolaev from the Black Sea Energy Research Center is going to tell us more about the Replace project, which focuses really on sustainable domestic heating solutions based on renewable energies. Angel, the floor is yours.
Good
day, everybody. Can you see the presentation well enough? We can see and we can hear you. Just as Gennady said, I'm going to talk about the results of the European project Replace, which has to do with the change out of old domestic heating systems. The scope of the project is East Europe Central Europe, and Southeast Europe. This is actually the region that our conference also focuses on. I'm going to start with a brief summary of the project. That's a project funded under the Horizon 2020 program of the European Union. You can see the duration of the project. We are currently in the beginning of the second half of the project. In other words, we are about to accomplish many of the results we've set for ourselves. The total budget for all partners is €2 million. You can see the website of the project. All the results that we accomplish are uploaded there once we have information about them, of course. The overall goal of the project is to enhance the shift for old heating devices with newer ones, cleaner ones, and by cleaner I mean devices with smaller environmental footprint. The project, in fact, is a wide scope awareness raising campaign in selected areas devoted to the change out of devices. We operate in two main directions. One of them is to raise awareness about the benefits of new technologies. For example, by raising awareness about best practices and other initiatives. And the other direction is to support public authorities and market players to initiate activities which are as efficient as possible and target this change out. Which are the public authorities and market players? Well, in general, all of them. Of course, we focus on municipalities because they are closer to households, but also we focus on national authorities and regional administrations who have their role to play in the implementation and the drafting of the policy itself. And as to the market players, those are predominantly the companies in charge of installations because they are closer to households and they are the ones who can have an impact on the choice that households are going to make for the optimum solution. This project covers 10 pilot regions in 10 different countries. These are the places where this campaign takes place. The countries are Austria, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Croatia, Germany, North Macedonia, Serbia, Slovenia, and Spain. In red here, you can see the regions where the program is taking place. Now, let's move on to the results of the project and the instruments that we have developed, or we are underway of developing. These are the results and the instruments that can be used by household, public authorities, and different intermediaries. The first tool that I would like to talk about are the matrices for a heating system. You can see what they are like. That's a tool applied in Austria for the past couple of years now, and they applied it very successfully, I would say. We've translated, but we've also adapted these matrices for each and every country under the project. What does adapted mean? Well, we've chosen the most appropriate technologies. You can see the different technologies in the matrix for Bulgaria. Boiler installation, burning pallets, boiler installations on wood, and so on and so forth. We have types of buildings depending on their energy efficiency class. You can see the different classes, A+, A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth. And as to the color coding, you can see green, very good, red, very poor performance. So here you can see how the different technological solutions correspond to the different classes of energy efficiency of buildings. In this matrix, you can see the technological solutions for single family and double family homes. We have such matrix for multi-family buildings. And the last two columns to your right show how different types of heating can be combined with the appropriate domestic hot water systems. This matrix, as you can see, is something quite simple. it can be used on a broad scale by the households. Of course, you should bear in mind that this is just an initial step. In other words, this familiarizes households with the potential solutions that they could use, but they need to look further into those solutions. So it's not a already given answer. But anyhow, this matrix can be popularized among households on a broad scale. Now, the next tool that I would like to talk about is the online calculator to compare different heating systems. This is a more complicated tool. This calculator provides much more detailed information and results respectively, which can be used for the selection of the most appropriate heating system. This is the reason why this calculator focuses predominantly on companies dealing with devices and installing them. This calculator uses a limited number of input data, and it can be used by everybody. But at the back end of the calculations, there are a lot of assumptions which would be good for consumers to understand and to change if need be. In other words, the users can actually change the settings. That's why it's good for the users to be equipped with the proper knowledge to be able to do that. So some consumers can do that, some users can do that, some municipalities can also do that, switch the settings in the respective way. What does this calculator do? Well, it makes a comparison with the annual total costs, exploitation costs included. So the calculator makes a comparison between different heating systems for already existing buildings, because here we're talking about a change of the heating system. We have predefined prices for pallets for each and every country. For example, price of pallets for each and every heating technology, technical parameters of the different technologies. Also, whether there are or there aren't financial incentives for the use of this or that technology in the different states. This would also affect the end result. Very much like the matrix, the calculator has been adopted to the individual conditions in every of the 9 countries under the project. In other words, all costs, the climatic conditions have been taken into account, and the calculator has been translated to the different languages. Of course, each and every state under the project can use the calculator in English as well. This is what the first screen looks like. This is where the input information is to be introduced by the user. This is information about the house, the home, the type of home, electricity consumption, the climatic area, what's the heated space, number of people living in this home, what type of heating does the building currently have. That's another piece of information to be provided, because we would then calculate the same quantity of heating to be provided via alternative methods and technologies. Once the user has input this information and information about other limitations, for example, whether the building allows for the storage of pallets, whether there is access, and so on and so forth, then the tool shows the respective results. What you can see on this screen are the results about CO2 emissions under the different potential heating technologies. There are also screens that show information about different financial indicators, energy savings, and so on and so forth, for all technologies, of course. As I said, the most valuable thing about this tool is that irrespective of the limited number of input data sections to be filled in, the user will be able to combine all assumptions and to make adjustments to the assumptions that have been made. For example, some users can have a price for pallets which is different from the one assumed in the settings, or some users can get a proposal for technology one of the technologies included in the calculator at a different price, different from the assumed one. So they can fix this in the settings. Another tool I would like to talk about has to do with the handbook on changing the heating installation. This is a handbook or guidelines targeting households. As all other outputs under this project, this handbook is accessible in all 9 languages, and the handbook has been adapted to the respective state. In other words, it hasn't just been translated into the respective language. This is a handbook that households can use in order to choose the most appropriate heating system. It also includes information about the energy efficiency renewal of their homes. This is a topic beside our main topic, but it's very closely linked because quite often energy efficiency renovation should precede the change of the heating system. In this handbook, you can find information about economic parameters, benefits, technological benefits, social benefits from the change, and so on. There, you will find recommended steps for the household to take during and before the change of the heating system, in order for the change to be successful. We also provide answers to the most common questions, and perhaps the most important part of this handbook is that it provides a technological reference for all heating and cooling technologies on the European market. There is a technological scheme as to when this particular technology would be a good option and when it would be a bad option, and so on and so forth. So this handbook could be popularized on a mass scale by municipalities via their web pages, in their Facebook profiles, because this handbook actually includes very detailed information for the consumers and how they can operate in order to make this shift. We have another handbook. It targets specialists, which is almost ready. Its content is similar to the content of the handbook for consumers, but in this case we view the situation from the viewpoint of constructors, companies dealing with installations, investors, and so on and so forth. In other words, we give them information as to how they can expand their market share by better marketing for their product and by better satisfaction rates amongst their customers. This handbook will be accessible on the website of our project in all languages, all 9 languages, English included, and it would also be adapted to the needs of the 9 countries.
Next, we have produced a catalog of good practices based on interviews with households that have successfully switched to renewable energy in their household heatings. This catalog includes the impressions, experiences, and other details of the replacement. So this is direct input from households in the separate countries. The catalog also includes some advice on how to switch to renewable heating successfully. For each of the 9 countries, we have selected the practices that would be best suited and easiest to implement. We have clarified when these practices, in what circumstances these practices would be suitable And this is my last slides. It shows other outputs that could be useful. We are going to conduct expert training workshops, most probably in September and October this year. All materials and presentations will be available after the workshops on the project's websites. Then, based on our campaigns in these 9 countries over the 3-year period, we will summarize the conclusions and recommendations for regions that are not included in our project. This will take probably about a year to produce, or somewhat longer. Thank you for your attention.
Initiative, but I don't want to sugarcoat my view on the project too much, because I had the honor to work extensively under this project in the last 2 years. But I think that it really provides helpful tools, not only for the local authorities, but also for consumers that want to form their educated and informed opinion if they want to replace. And these consumers are, as we say in Bulgarian, the first white swallows that can show the way ahead and can really be icebreakers when it comes to showing an example to the rest of the society. So indeed, I'm very curious to see how the project will continue onwards. Now, our colleague from Zazemyata, Svetoslav Stojkov, we give Svetlir the floor. He's going to tell us an opinion on the topics of the replacement of the fuel basis in households so far in Sofia municipalities and the results from the installment of electrostatic filters on chimneys in households in the last 2 years. We didn't manage to maybe provide an invitation in time to Sofia municipality, so they declined the offer to participate in the event today. But we would like to, at least to present what is visible as results from public domain and can be seen through our eyes and through the eyes of the public. Светля.
Здравейте всички. Искам да кажа няколко думички за...
Hello everybody. I would like to briefly present the Sofia municipality's measures to improve air quality and reduce particulate matter in the Sofia municipality. One of the initiatives that was launched recently was the installation of electrostatic filters on chimneys, on household chimneys. Some time ago, we applied for access to public information under the Access to Public Information Act in order to obtain more detailed information on the results achieved. I would like today to present the results we have available. So far, the Sofia municipality has installed more than 500 electrostatic filters on household chimneys. By the end of 2021, the municipality is planning to install 500 filters more. The filters have been installed in the Krasna Poljana and Slatina districts of Sofia. According to the official data available in Sofia municipality, these are the districts where the particulate matter situation is the worst in Sofia. I want to stress on the efficiency of these filters. The filter manufacturers advertise the high efficiency of their filters and systems. They advertise an efficiency of 95%. This means, they say, that a huge share of the particulate matter can be eliminated at the source of the particulate matter. Real-life experiments, however, are still limited. I want to stress on a study by the Technical University of Graz in Austria. They tested 14 different filters, and the efficiency varied between 11 and 98%. One of the lowest efficiency filters shows an efficiency of 11%, while the highest efficiency filter has a 98% efficiency. It's a completely different matter what kind of quality of fuel is used, and what is the quality of the heating devices. Poor quality devices and fuel can result in particulate matter sticking onto the filter and reducing its efficiency. Regrettably, there is no reliable data in Bulgaria yet. There is data available from countries such as Norway, where the fuel base is much more efficient. The types of fuel used most commonly there are pellets and biomass. It's important to note here that the installation of particulate matter filters on chimneys does not address the issue of poor quality fuels and poor quality heating devices. So even if filters could be an additional measure, it's more important to introduce high quality standards for fuel, for solid fuel and heating devices. However, there are no reliable measurements concerning the fuels used and the heating devices used. Another initiative in Sofia was the initiative to replace heating devices in Sofia. This initiative has been co-funded by the European Union under the Environment Operational Program and by the central budget of Bulgaria. By the end of 2020, 140 heating devices in the districts of Pančerevo and Novi Iskar have been replaced. A little more than 5,500 households will receive state-of-the-art heating devices free of charge. It's interesting to note that the funding covers the supply and installation of the equipment, then training users, and then warranty service for 5 years. The highest number of households are interested in replacing old stoves with air conditioners and efficient electric heaters. More than 5,000 air conditioners have been applied for. Some 300 households have applied for pellet heaters. Some 500 households have applied for gas heaters, and the rest have applied for replacement with electric radiators. A large share of the contracts with beneficiaries have already been signed, and this signing process is to be finalized shortly. Under the Environment Operational Program, the inefficient heating devices of 9,500 more households in Sofia will be replaced. I really welcome this initiative. I want to stress here on the methodology of replacing old heating devices and whether these methodologies are relevant. There is keen interest on pellet heaters.
Right away, I won't go too deep into the comments, but I would like to straight away post the question, and it's considering that what were the rumors of the cost of a single filter, single chimney filter, which ranged from 1,500 euro to slightly over 3,000 euro, which is enough or even twice more expensive, depending on the filter, than basically the investment which is envisaged under the various programs to change the fuel base of a household. Do you think that without results after the installment of these 500 filters, Sofia municipality should have gone to installing yet another 500?
I'm not really aware. Maybe Sofia municipality have some data to prove that these filters are effective. It is just not seen in the public sphere. So let's wait and see what is going to happen if they can provide us this kind of data of the effectiveness of the electrostatic filters. Otherwise, my personal opinion is that I think that without such results of the effectiveness of the filters, the installation of more, it's not really necessary, especially considering the old base of the heating equipment that we are using here, and considering the solid fuel, the quality of the solid fuel that we are using. So the thing is that, as I mentioned, the effectiveness of these systems can range from around 10% to nearly 98%. So they can be an effective solution, but the municipality basically should prove us that they are.
It's a big topic of debate even here within Zazemiata, basically what is promoted. So obviously there is no silver bullet. I would still like the audience to bear with us a few more minutes, as we are running a little bit behind the schedule. But I would like to give a chance maybe for some questions to come through the chat and the Q&A function. I have a question to Mr. Molov. Is Smolin municipality considering continuation of the program under any funding opportunity in the next programming period, or maybe under the recovery and resilience plan, or whatever opportunity. Do you consider this, and how do you see this continuation, if it's planned?
За подмяната на горивните инсталации има възможност.
As regards the replacement of heating installations, indeed, this would be possible. I believe that the European Commission will agree to provide such funding. As a result of our current project, we have estimated that replacement would be possible for 2,300 more households. So we expect all these households to have their devices replaced in the next programming period. This means that the total number of households with replaced heating devices will be approximately 5,000. As I already said, there are 8,000 households in the territory of the municipality of Smolen, and many of them replace their heating devices using their own funding, their own resources. If we succeed with all these investments, this means that we will have replaced 90% of inefficient heating devices in the next few years. I should point out here that there is no district heating in the municipality of Smolen. There are small-scale installations, but their penetration is very slow. Based on our conversations with the Ministry of Environment, the most efficient way to deal with the problem would be for the ministry to provide funding for a central gas installation for the municipality, but this is not an eligible expense under the operational program. Let me also point out that also according to the regulations, my colleagues are monitoring the development of regulations. So, according to the regulations, until 3 months ago, it was not gasification of households was not eligible. So investments in gas installations are not eligible under operational programs.
This was very much in line with what we have to debate on Wednesday, when we'll be talking about the lock-in effect of the fossil gas and the situation that many Western European countries are already planning their phase out from fossil gas, and the push for decarbonization is literally inevitable. A question to Angel, and maybe in combination with Stevan in this case, bringing back another speaker from the previous panel. Angel, do you think that the project will have the capacity if you get approached by other organizations from other countries? Because I think it could be a useful exchange of the tools that are developed on the Replace and maybe some other initiatives. I'm literally hinting, Stevan, here that maybe the Clean Stove initiative could use some of the tools that you are developing under Replace.
So your question is whether the Replace tools will be good for other countries as well. Well, rather whether you will be okay if they contact you, if other organizations and initiatives decided to contact you. Do you have the capacity to cope with such external requests? Yes, sure, no problem. it would be okay if they contacted us, and we are going to negotiate with them on a case-to-case basis. We would be happy to help more countries and regions.
Well, I think that with this, we can close today. Stefan, you're unmuted. Anything to add?
I just wanted to say I was going to reach out to Angel even without your recommendation. So speak to you soon, Angel.
These networking effects are basically one of our hidden agenda points in this arranging this conference. So I'm very happy that this is going to happen. Now, I would like my colleagues Svetoslav and Radostina to turn on their cameras because they deserve a special thanks for organizing the event today and for also taking the burden to organize everything in the days to come. They have really managed to structure a very interesting agenda of the day and the coming days. With this, I'm going to lift the curtain for the event tomorrow again at the same time, same link for everybody who's going to be under Zoom, and maybe a different link under YouTube. Radi, please let us know if that's the case. So it's going to be different links, so please follow up of the new links posted when it comes to the streaming part of the event. Tomorrow, we are going to have two panels, as I said, again, at the same time. The first panel will be focused on how we can turn existing district heating networks into ones that are based on renewable energies, because this is slowly turning into the next big topic in heating. In many respects, it's easier to tackle individual households, but restructuring existing district heating networks, especially in bigger cities like the almost 2 million population of Sofia, much of which is covered by the district heating network, is a true challenge, not on something that is only just about starting as a topic in Central and Eastern and Southeastern Europe, but it is a difficult thing also around Europe as well, even though there are already advancing initiatives. The second panel that we have tomorrow is focused on the topic of finance for such programs and measures. We have, again, interesting presentations and research that is done in the last few years of how we can better structure finance schemes, financial instruments, and not hinder the market tools such as the ESCO initiatives. We'll be waiting for you tomorrow at starting in 10 Eastern European time and 9 o'clock Central European time. So welcome back tomorrow morning. Have a very pleasant afternoon now and see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.